Sometimes you don't plan to run away. It just builds up. Not from one day, not from one mistake, but from 1,000 little moments when you say to yourself, later. I didn't wake up thinking, today I'm going to change my life. I just realized I couldn't stay any longer. I bought an old, rusty car, not because it was good, but because it was affordable, like any wrong decision in life. I said I was going to Vegas because it sounded convincing, but the truth was simpler. I was running away from myself. Night, an empty highway. The dashboard glowed like the last island of warmth, and ahead, only the road, which promised nothing. I thought this trip would break me, that I would get stuck somewhere in the middle of the desert, that it would be another story about the wrong choice. But the road did something else. It made me stop, be quiet, and for the first time in a long time, hear myself. This is not a story about Vegas, or even about the car. This is a story about the moment when you realize if it gets too crowded, you can leave. Chapter 1. The worst car I ever trusted. I didn't buy this car because I wanted to. I bought it because it was cheaper than all my doubts. The old Buick stood by the trailer like a dog that hadn't been walked in a long time. The color was somewhere between rust and shame. The seller said, "Runs fine." In the US, that means, as long as it's standing still, there are no problems. I opened the door. It creaked as if the car wanted to say, "Think again, buddy." Inside, it smelled of gasoline, old cigarettes, and decisions you regret at 35. Perfect. I was at that age when you want to do something stupid and call it a new phase. "Where are you headed?" asked the salesman. "Vegas." "That's far." "I know." I wasn't going to Vegas. I was going to get away. Vegas just sounded good. I got behind the wheel, turned the key, and it started. That was the first lie of the trip. Why I left. I didn't have a decent job, a plan, any reason to stay. But I did have a little cash, an old car, confidence that somewhere is better than here. The American dream begins just like that, or the American mistake. The Buick wasn't just a means of transportation. It was louder than my thoughts, older than my problems, more honest than most people I knew. It didn't promise to get me there. He just drove. When I left the city, the check engine light came on. I looked at it and said, "We'll figure it out on the road." That was the second lie, but the road accepted it. Chapter 2. Gas stations know everything. The first gas station appeared 2 hours after departure. It was as if the road said, "Okay, hero, let's see if you're serious." The gas station stood in the middle of nowhere. Not somewhere, but nothingness. The light from the lamps was so bright that it seemed as if it was trying to escape the darkness. I got out of the car. The engine fell silent with a sound as if it were offended. Inside sat a cashier, about 60 years old. His face was like a road map, lots of lines, and none of them leading anywhere. "Long drive?" he asked without looking up. "Vegas." He looked up. "Everyone says Vegas. Half of them just need an excuse." I bought coffee. It was hot, black, and clearly hated people. Perfect. "That car yours?" "Yeah." "It hates you already." I smiled. It was the first time anyone had told me the truth today. As I was leaving, he added, "Don't rush the road. She doesn't like that." I didn't know what that meant. but I remembered it. Chapter 3. The first breakdown is always emotional. The breakdown didn't happen suddenly. It grew like a bad thought. First, a strange sound, then a vibration, then silence. The Buick stopped so calmly, as if it had decided, enough, let's talk. I sat in the car for about 5 minutes. Because when you get out, you admit the problem. And that's exactly what I was driving away from. The hood opened easily. That made me wary. Underneath was everything I didn't understand but feared. I sat down on the side of the road. The road was empty. Completely. No cars, no sounds. Just the wind, which had no plans for the future. I thought about what I could be doing right now. At the same job, in the same apartment, having the same conversations. And for the first time in a long time, I felt, I don't want to go back. Even if it's worse here. The headlights appeared unexpectedly. An old pickup truck. A man in a baseball cap got out. You good? Not really. Good, honest answer. He looked under the hood. She'll run, just not because you ask nicely. He tweaked something, hit something, the American method, and the car started. Where are you headed? Vegas. He smiled. Figures. As I drove on, I realized one thing. A car doesn't break down when it's feeling bad. They break down when you need to stop. Chapter 4. Motel rooms are honest places. The motel was called Sunset Inn, although the sun never seemed to set here. Not because it was beautiful. It was because there was no point in going any further. The neon sign flashed as if it had memory problems. Parking free. That was their main advantage. The room cost $29 and hope. I paid in cash. The woman at the counter didn't even look up. Ice machine doesn't work. That's okay. TV too. That was even better. TV always tries to convince you that someone else's life is worse than yours. That night, I didn't want any comparisons. The room smelled like old soap, dust, other people's dreams. I sat down on the bed. It creaked as if it wanted to tell stories that were better left untold. The mirror in the bathroom was merciless. My face was tired. My eyes were honest for the first time. I realized I wasn't running away from people. I was running away from the version of myself that had stayed at home. I lay down without taking off my jacket. I dreamed of the road. She was silent. Chapter 5. Everyone on the road is running from something. In the morning, the road looked different, less aggressive, more indifferent. I stopped at a diner 5 miles down the road. It was called Jenny's, but Jenny seemed to have left long ago and never returned. I sat down at the bar. The coffee here was stronger than most people's personalities. A truck driver was sitting next to me, 40 plus, hands like asphalt. Where are you going? He asked. Vegas. Nah, he smiled. You're just driving. It was said without contempt, rather with understanding. First long road? Yeah. You'll learn one thing. He took a sip of coffee. Everyone out here is running from something. Jobs, marriages, themselves. I didn't answer. Because if you stay silent, people think you're smart. Car holding up? Barely. Good. Perfect cars don't teach you anything. As I was leaving, he called after me. Don't turn back just because it gets quiet. I got into the Buick. It started reluctantly, but without protest. We began to understand each other. I drove onto the highway. Vegas was still far away, but that didn't matter anymore. Chapter 6. The desert doesn't care who you are. The desert doesn't begin abruptly. It just stops ending. The green disappears. Signs become fewer. The radio picks up only static and a preacher who shouts as if trying to outshout God himself. I turn down the volume. The desert doesn't like competition. There is no one to impress here, no one to explain to. It doesn't matter who you were yesterday. The Buick was warming up. So was I. I realized one thing. The city gives the illusion of control. The desert takes it away completely. I pulled over to the side of the road. I got out. The silence was so thick that I wanted to whisper out of respect. I thought about all my plans. They seemed insignificant. And for the first time, it didn't scare me. Nothing was waiting for me here. And that was the best thing that had happened to me in a long time. Chapter 7. When music becomes a passenger. When words end, music remains. I found a cassette tape in the glove compartment. No cover, no label. The previous owner left it there like a letter without an address. I put it in the stereo. Guitar. A hoarse voice. A song about a road that promises nothing but movement. It wasn't my favorite music. It was necessary. I drove and listened. I didn't analyze it. I didn't reminisce. The music sat next to me like a passenger who doesn't ask questions. I caught myself smiling. Not broadly, just a little. That's how people smile who aren't happy yet, but aren't angry anymore. The Buick drove smoothly. The desert was silent. And for the first time in the entire trip, I didn't think about what would happen next. I was just here. Sometimes the journey heals not with answers, but with the absence of questions. Chapter 8. Vegas is loud, even when you're quiet. Vegas didn't appear as a city. It started as a promise that screamed. Neon cut through the darkness. Advertisements flashed as if competing for the attention of people who had long since lost it. The Buick rolled slowly, not because of traffic, but because of hesitation. I stopped at a traffic light. Next to me was a convertible with tourists. They laughed so loudly, as if afraid to fall silent. I rolled down the window. The city rushed in at once. Music, smells, strangers' conversations, discounted hopes. I realized, Vegas isn't listening. It shouts louder. And if you're quiet, that's your problem. I parked far from the center, not to save money, out of caution. The road taught me not to get involved in noise for no reason. The Buick stalled. We were silent. We both knew this wasn't the end. Chapter 9. The city that sells hope by the hour. In Vegas, everything looks like an opportunity, even defeat. I walked into the casino, not out of excitement, but out of curiosity. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation. The slot machines jingled like little bells calling people to a godless prayer. I exchanged $20, lost it in 3 minutes. It was the cheapest conversation I ever had with the city. "Better luck next time," said the girl behind the counter without looking up. Vegas always says next time, even when there won't be. I had a beer at the bar. A man in a suit who remembered better years was sitting next to me. "You win?" he asked. "No." "Then you're doing it right." I went outside. The neon lights were beautiful but cold, like a nameless compliment. I understood the main thing. The city sells hope by the hour. The road gives it for free, but without guarantees. I returned to the car. I sat down. I didn't start it. I didn't want to leave. But I didn't want to stay either. Sometimes you reach a place that was supposed to be the answer, and you realize it's just a mirror. Chapter 10. Turning around is not the same as going back. I left Vegas early. The city hadn't woken up yet. It had just switched to the night shift. The neon lights looked tired. So did the promises. I didn't plan to turn around. It just happened. Like exhaling when you stop holding your breath. The road back was the same, but I wasn't. I realized one simple thing. Turning back doesn't mean losing. Sometimes it means you've understood something. The Buick drove smoothly, as if it approved. In the rearview mirror, Vegas was getting smaller. Not because I was moving away. It was because it no longer mattered. Chapter 11. The car knows the way home. I stopped counting the miles. When the road becomes familiar, the numbers lose their meaning. The Buick knew this route better than I did. It reacted to turns before I thought about them. Like an old friend who needs no explanation. I turned on the radio. There was music. Different music. Calmer music. It didn't call me forward or pull me back. I thought about how you don't have to change your life in one trip. Sometimes it's enough to realize that you can go. That knowledge stays with you, even when you stop. The sun was setting. The road stretched on. I wasn't happy, but I was whole. Not all journeys change the direction of life. Some just turn the steering wheel back into place. Chapter 12. Home is smaller than you remember. My city greeted me without emotion. No questions. Without reproaches. The buildings became shorter. The streets became narrower. Or maybe I had changed. I parked my Buick near the house. The engine died reluctantly, as if it didn't want to admit that the journey was over. My neighbor was mowing the lawn. He nodded. He didn't ask any questions. It was the best form of respect. I went into the house. Everything was in its place. The things I had left behind hadn't moved, as if they were waiting but not hoping. I sat down on a chair and realized, a house does not change to suit you. It simply exists. And that's enough. Chapter 13. What stayed, what didn't. I didn't bring any souvenirs with me. No photos, no big stories for the bar. But something remained. What remained was the feeling that silence is not the enemy. The knowledge that the road is always nearby. The understanding that escape is also a form of search. What is gone? Anger. The feeling of being trapped. The need to prove something to someone. I put the keys to the Buick on the table. They jingled, simply, mundanely. Tomorrow there will be work, bills, small talk. But now I knew, if things got too crowded, I would leave. Not necessarily far, just far enough to hear myself again. The road promises nothing, but it always responds if you're ready to listen.